They didn't knock on my door because I'd broken the law. They knocked because the HOA president picked up the phone and told them to.
Picture it.
Red and blue lights cutting across my front gate while I'm out by the lake just tightening up the old fence minding my business. Suddenly, I'm squinting through that glare thinking, here we go again. Because in places like this, sometimes the biggest trouble starts with a clipboard and a little too much confidence. If you've ever tangled with an HOA that forgot its place, buckle up. This one will sound familiar. So, there I was, last wire in hand, listening to the sound of tires on gravel. Not a ranch truck, too quiet, too careful. I wipe my hands, stand up, and by the time I'm halfway to the porch, those lights blink once and go still like they're marking the start of something official. Lake's behind me, dock silent, and the fence line's exactly where it's always been, way before this HOA ever existed. I know because I put it there. Same as the dam they're now all squabbling over. Knock comes before I even hit the porch. Heavy. Not the kind you pretend you didn't hear. 2 cops' uniforms, crisp car angled across the drive like they're setting up a checkpoint. One's young eyes darting past me at everything fence dock water. Others got more years on his face and his hand a little too close to his belt.
Afternoon, sir. We need to talk.
About what, I ask. Not rude, just tired. Willow Ridge HOA says there's a dangerous trespasser refusing to comply with lawful orders. Dangerous trespasser on my own land. I let that hang a second. Sir, we're just responding to the call. HOA says you're blocking community shoreline threatening residents. Now see, that's how these things start. Not with facts, but with someone else's story.
I tell him, calm as a sunrise.
I haven't threatened anyone and that so-called community shoreline isn't even theirs. Younger cop starts getting that look like that's not what the complaint says. Complaints aren't deeds, I shoot back.
Who signed it?
And there it is. Bethany Crowell, president of the HOA, bane of my Saturdays. So I step out onto the porch, not defensive, just making it clear. This is my land, my story. Did she bring a survey, a county filing, anything that proves her claim? They hand me a paper, color lines, big bold communities stamped across the lake. But there's no county seal, no recorder's mark, no plat number.
I say no legal stamp, no plat.
You're acting on a map, not a law. Young cop tenses up, asks if I'm refusing to comply with HOA directives. I'm asking why an HOA thinks it can summon the police over a boundary dispute. Then the air shifts. No one's raising their voice, but you can feel it. The call said you were armed, the older one says, waiting to see how I'll react.
Almost laugh. This is Montana. Everybody's armed.
Doesn't make it a crime.
Silence.
Lake water lapping rocks.
Nerves tightening.
They ask to look at the area in question.
Look all you want, I say.
Just don't accuse me of trespassing on my own land. I walk down slow, hands visible.
They follow.
Fence is right where it should be posted with a sign.
Recorded property line.
No unauthorized access. The younger cop reads it out loud.
The older one frowns.
HOA says you're blocking access. Then the HOA is lying. I answer. Just as things are about to get interesting, here comes Bethany. Red SUV, gravel flying. She's out before the engine dies. Red jacket, clipboard at the ready. Marching up like she owns the world. Thank God you're here. He's been non-compliant for weeks. This is HOA land. He's put up an illegal fence blocking residents from the lake. She barely looks at me, just starts performing for the officers louder. Every sentence thinking noise equals truth. But the more she talks, the more the cracks show. She shoves her clipboard forward, says her compliance committee made the maps. Old cop asks for proof, boundary lines, county filings.
She waves him off.
HOA land doesn't need county approval. It's private governance. But the younger officer actually frowns. That's not how land ownership works. Bethany tries to pivot, accuses me of threatening the lake. Older cop asks if there's documentation.
She stalls. I step in.
Nobody's heard me threaten anything I just said. The HOA doesn't own this shoreline. Residents have used it for years.
Bethany snaps.
Use isn't ownership, I say.
She whips around.
You don't get to redefine community history.
I don't. The deed does.
That lands hard. Officer asks if I have it on hand. Inside the house, I say, and Bethany loses it. You're not going anywhere until this is resolved.
Old cop puts a stop to that.
Sir can get his paperwork. Back inside. My folder is right where I left it. Deed, survey, water, use agreement, all stamped, all legal. When I hand it over, Bethy's voice speeds up, accusing me of ignoring notices.
Young cop shakes his head.
You can't send police based on HOA warnings. The older one reads through my documents, slow and careful, his face changing as he sees the stamps. This land in the shoreline is privately owned, he announces.
Bethany is stunned.
That can't be right, the younger cop asks. Did the HOA verify ownership before calling us? Her answer's too quick, of course, but her face says she's just been caught bluffing. Bethany tries to push harder. That deed is outdated. The HOA updated the shoreline years ago. Everyone knows the officer's done with the dance. Land boundaries are recorded by the county, not by everyone. Bethany throws every argument she has, gets shriller. Finally says, I've always acted above everyone else. Did you tell dispatch he was dangerous?
The cop asks. Yes, because he is. How he's armed. He's hostile. I cooperated.
I ask questions.
Old cop steps in. Ma'am, calm down.
We're siding with the law. Bethany realizes she's losing control. She lowers her voice, tries a different tactic. He isolates himself, hides behind old documents. That's why the board had to step in.
Cop shoots her down.
The board doesn't have authority over private land.
She snaps back.
We do when it impacts community resources. No, I say, because my name's on the deed.
Then comes the twist.
Cop asks how long the HOA has been claiming the shoreline. Since before he put up the gate. Bethany says that gate's been there 3 years. I reply. You're lying. County inspection photos back me up, I say. And suddenly Bethany isn't just fighting me, she's fighting the record. Old cop asks if she consulted a surveyor. Our legal advisor, she mutters, and the silence grows. At this point, neighbors have come out watching. The older cop hands me back my document, says this is a civil dispute. The police aren't removing anyone.
Bethy's face drains.
You can't do that. The board doesn't dictate police reports, he answers. Bethany sees she's lost and quietly warns me.
This isn't over.
No, I say you did this. Then I show the officers the real reason this fight's happening. An old steel survey marker stamped and filed in 1989, marking the dam's boundary. Permanent, not decorative. Bethany protests. Anyone can plant metal in the ground. Not with a county stamp and coordinates. The cops match the marker to my documents. See, it all lines up. Old doesn't mean invalid. The cop says old means recorded. I showed them the water use agreement, maintenance and emergency access. Only no recreational easement. Residents have used that water for years, Bethany protests. Permission isn't ownership and tolerance isn't transfer, the officer replies. Now it all unravels. Bethany hands over a new map, thicker blue line pushing past the marker. Who drew this? Community planning surveyor, legal advisor. The officer radios in the deed number, and a few 10 minutes later, county confirms everything I've said. Survey is valid.
Deed is clear.
Bethany tries to bluff.
That's impossible.
But the officers are done. The board never owned this shoreline.
The mood shifts.
Neighbors gather, phones recording. Tom across the road leans against his truck and asks if I think this will get worse. Yeah, I tell him, because it already has. Bethy's not just pushing for lake access. She's been going door to door getting people to sign usage agreements. Tom hands me 3 pages of dense legally signature line labeled participating landowner, not access surrender, sublease rights for development. I realize name at the bottom, Marcus Hale, a developer, not local. Now it's clear, maps pressure police. This isn't about community. It's about clearing obstacles for a developer. I tell Tom to warn the others, don't sign anything. I call Sarah Whitfield, lawyer, who knows this game.
She gets it instantly.
Says, preserve every document file for an injunction. And if Hale's involved, Discovery will pull him in. Neighbors start coming by with envelopes, same agreement, same name. She's not asking, I tell them.
She's harvesting. Then we stop her, they say.
Legally, I answer. That night, Sheriff Morales shows up, looks through everything.
Deed survey agreements, maps.
He reads the situation quick. Bethany Crowell called you a dangerous trespasser. But you're the engineer who built the dam. The officers suddenly realize who I am. I helped design the very line they're arguing about. Morales says he's opening an abuse of authority review documenting the HOA's misuse of police. If Bethany or anyone from the HOA steps foot past the gate again, call me. Next morning, Sarah arrives with a box of files. We stack everything: deed surveys, agreements. This is misrepresentation, she says, holding up the HOA map. And this, I point to Hale's name, evidence of coordination. We file an emergency injunction. Include the police call as proof of harassment. By noon, the injunction's granted. By afternoon, Bethy's in meltdown, the board in chaos. Neighbors talking openly. Sarah files for discovery. Every payment, every contract, every email. Judge approves it. Now the fight leaves the fence line and enters a place Bethany can't spin with words. The documents arrive. Boxes and boxes, every line item. HOA payments, consulting fees, contracts, all of it points to Hale routed through shell companies. Always with just enough distance to claim ignorance. Sarah's face is grim.
This isn't sloppy. It's practiced. The hearing comes fast.
Judge hears it all. The police call the fabricated maps, the bogus agreements, the money trail. Sarah lays it out calm, precise. Not just HOA overreach, but full-on coordination with a developer. Then comes the survey marker, the boundary older than the HOA. Judge isn't impressed with Bethy's excuses or her attorney's objections. Ruling swift. HOA has zero authority over my land or shoreline. Agreements void, injunction made permanent, fines assessed, legal fees covered. Bethy's found personally liable for abuse of process and the HOA ordered to submit to an audit, and Marcus Hale judge refers him for investigation. After that, it all unravels. The HOA board collapses. Resignations stack up. Audit finds misused funds.
Shell contracts. Bethany leaves town.
Red Jacket gone for good. Hale's companies fold quietly, slipping into darkness with no statement.
The fence line stands.
The markers reset. Neighbors stop by, grateful they didn't sign. I didn't know we could say no, one says. You always could. You just needed proof. You, Sarah tells me this case will be cited for years. You didn't just protect your land, you set a boundary others can point to. The sheriff drives past waves.
Nothing more to see.
Lake still, the dam's working.
Nothing's changed.
But who understands the rules?
That's the lesson, right?
HOAs and people like Bethany count on nobody pushing back. That printed rules sound like law if they're loud enough. They never expect someone to keep receipts or to know where the lines are really drawn. But dignity doesn't need permission, just proof. And when you've got that, even sirens know when to turn around. Ever had to stand your ground against an HOA or someone trying to take what's not theirs? Drop a yes in the comments. Let folks know they're not alone. And if stories like this matter to you about land dignity and drawing the line, hit subscribe and stay with